Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and this is the Surface Pro 6. Now this comes in at about $1,300 for this particular model, and this is the new color this year, black. And the $1,300 model, this is without any discounts or anything, does not come with the pen or the keyboard attachment that we have here. Those will cost you a little bit extra, so this would be up to $150 for the Alcantara one. The black one doesn't come in Alcantara, and then also about $100 for the pen, but these are often on sale for about $70 or $80. And the Alcantara keyboard was on sale for about $120 to $130, so it just depends where you live. Now the Surface itself isn't much different than last year's. If we open it up here, you've still got the kickstand. It's very durable. You can push on it and flatten it out. It doesn't harm it. And you also have that expandable storage slot. So if you want to expand it with a micro SD card, I had some people ask me, how does it fit in there? And does it stick out? That's what it looks like when it's installed. And you can install up to, I think, 2 terabytes on this. 1 to 2 terabytes. Most people are going to buy about 512 gig ones anyway. Now, aside from that, and aside from the kickstand, on the back you have your camera, like you would expect on these devices. And then also you've got your microphone. And then on the top, you've got your power, sleep, wake button, your volume button. And then there's no USB-C still, maybe next year. And then we still have the magnetic connector for charging, which I really appreciate since Apple got rid of this. I still think this is the way to go for charging. It also expands to a dock, and then you can power a couple displays. You've got USB-A and a display port for a monitor out if you don't want to use the dock. Then on this side, we've just got the magnetic piece here and a headphone jack at the top. So we can use a headphone jack still, which is great. And then again, the magnetic matching pen. You don't have to use that pen. You can go all the way back with that. And then on the top here, there's a little bit of a vent. And this one is the fanless model. The Core i5s are fanless, so that's great. This is never intended to be a gaming machine and only has 8 gigs of RAM as far as this one goes. So this is a quad-core device, though, which is nice. A 1.6 gigahertz quad-core. And it goes up to about 1.9 quad-core on the i7, but it is the 8th gen Kaby Lake processor. So let's take a closer look. Now I've been using this Microsoft mouse with it. It's one of my favorites, but it is an additional $100. But that's what I use normally with my PC. So let's go ahead and unlock it with Windows Hello. And you'll see it works very quickly. And we're immediately in Photoshop. So you'll see here's Photoshop. It runs it no problem. And you'll see it just took a moment for it to recognize that. We can zoom in, and it's very responsive. And we'll talk more about some more pen input in just a moment, but I wanted to show you Photoshop has no issues. I did have some issues with it on the Surface Go, but this has been open for a couple days on here with no problem. And standby battery is really good. So you'll see we're at 70%. It's been unplugged for about a day or so, and I use it on or off. Honestly, you're going to easily get about 10 hours. If you're just playing video, about 12 hours. It depends what you're doing. So let's minimize this, and you'll see here's Photoshop, or Premiere Pro rather, and it works just like you would expect. I'm in the timeline, and you can put your video in there and edit 4K video. Now, I wouldn't buy this model for 4K video editing regularly. I'd probably upgrade to the Core i7 for that, but it's going to be very adequate for most things. Now, I did run Intel's Power Gadget while I was doing some other tasks. Let's put this here, and we'll leave this over here just so we can take a look at it. And you saw some tearing there, so we'll take a look at it as we use this. But it does get warm in the back, but it does throttle a little bit. So let's open a game such as Cities Skyline. So remember, we have Photoshop open and Premiere open, and that's not a normal use case that you would leave those open while you're playing this, because you're using up RAM, and most of the time it's not going to be doing much in the background, but you will use up some RAM while you're doing that. Now, I've set everything to medium. I did have it set up to high on everything to use on my main gaming machine, which has a 1080 graphics card in it. So it's a 1080 Founders Edition. So this can actually handle it, but it's very choppy in those resolutions. So I bumped it down to medium, and we'll wait for it to load so I can show you. Now that took a good minute to 2 minutes to actually load, and if you notice up here in the right, the CPU utilization is bouncing between 80 and 100%, and the frequency, the base clock speed is 1.8 on this one, but it's hanging around 1.1. I've seen it stay at 2.4 and then come back down, and it's usually around the 1.2 to 1.4 gigahertz. You'll see it right here, it's starting to throttle, and if I put my hand behind it, it's not very warm yet. but loading it was kind of intense and took 1 to 2 minutes. So we're on medium display settings, and you'll see it's just not terribly suited for this. And this was never meant to be a gaming machine. If I zoom out, I have a huge city here that already has 264,000 as far as population, and you'll see it's not finished yet, but it is filled in, and it's a lot of processing for this to do. Now, it is playable probably in low resolutions, and if I zoom in here to my city, you'll see it's very choppy as far as the frame rate goes, and it's just not the best as far as that. However, let's get out of this, and doing your normal tasks should be just fine. Now, if I click the pen on the end, you can bring up sticky notes. We can go into here, and now we've got a sticky note. We can move around. Let's bring it to the edge and check for edge detection. It's pretty good right there. So let me zoom in. So if we check for edge detection, it goes right up to the edge. So it's pretty good there. I can fill it in. The actual touch sensitivity is really pretty good right there. And if I just write Zollotech quickly, it's quite good. So that's really messy, but I think you get the idea. So we have another option here. If we click the top button, we can go to screen sketch, maybe draw on it, maybe circle something, point something out, and I think you get the idea. It's pretty good for the most part. I don't really see any lag, especially on the apps designed specifically for it. And then also, I don't think you're going to want to get one of these without the keyboard. The keyboard is kind of an expensive accessory I mentioned before, but it completes the package. It connects seamlessly and is backlit. So when you want to use it and use it in the dark on your lap, you can do that. Now, one of the things people ask is for Heaven benchmarks. So we'll see if we can open that up, and we'll run a couple benchmarks here just to see what it's like. We'll let it load here. It is on extreme. If I bring it over here, you'll notice we're only at about 3 frames per second, so this is not meant for gaming, it's meant for applications and Word and things like that. So let's see how the processor itself does. Now again, the back does not feel that warm. Let's run a CPU benchmark and see what we come up with. You'll see the single core is 3026 and 10518 for multi-core score. So that should give you an idea there. And let's close that, and you can see here our frequency test. It did throttle a little bit back and forth, but we expect that on such a thin device. Now, the overall experience of using this device, I actually really like it. I think the tablet is good. The display may be a little bit small for some, but it looks fantastic. It's a 12.3-inch display, and it's a 10-point multi-touch display. So it's no different than last year. It's great. It looks great, and it's a joy to use as far as that goes. Now, as far as the overall experience of Windows, Windows works great, but with applications, like I said, such as Forza, which is a Microsoft application they show off on the Surface Books, it just doesn't run here. It actually tells you it's not supported. You can get the display screen to come up, and then when you try to run it, it won't run. Now let's try one more benchmark so we can take a look at that. So we'll go ahead and run Cinebench. We'll run the CPU test first, and then we'll run OpenGL. So you'll see we got 462, and that's not incredibly fast, but let's take a look at the OpenGL scores now as well. So you'll see that came in at 37.98 frames per second. So like I said before, it's not really a gaming machine, but it's great for everyday work and everyday use. So it works well on anything from web browsing to having different applications open, and even a little bit older games such as, well, cities in low resolution. But if you want to use Premiere or Photoshop, that should work just fine for you. I don't know if I'd suggest the Core i5 if I was going to edit 4K video, but you may want to look at the Surface Book for something like that. But I think overall it's a great package and a great spec bump from last year compared to what we had. I would expect a redesign next year. But let me know your thoughts about it in the comments below. If you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe and like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.